My name is Helen Carter. I am 66 years old, and I live in Portland, Oregon. I have always considered myself a simple, grounded woman. After dedicating decades of my life to teaching as a librarian, I retired with the hope of spending peaceful days with my family, enjoying the quiet rhythms of life. I had 2 children, my daughter, Sophia, 33, and my son, Lucas, 36. Both had grown into responsible, caring individuals, yet still needed their mother's guidance in small ways. Life, I thought, was stable. My husband, though distant at times, seemed content with the life we had built together, and I had trusted that the love and security we shared would continue until the very end, and the house we lived in was filled with memories, birthday celebrations, late-night talks, shared laughter over simple meals. Every corner held a story, a reminder of the years we had spent nurturing this family. It was a life I thought was unshakable. I had devoted myself to my children's growth, ensuring that they had everything they needed: love, stability, education, and the freedom to pursue their dreams. I was proud of the adults they had become, and I cherished the quiet moments we shared in the evenings, sipping tea and discussing their plans for the future. Yet, as I settled into what I believed would be the comfortable twilight of my life, I never imagined that the ground beneath me would suddenly vanish. I had always believed that with trust, patience, and care, a family could withstand almost anything. And yet, nothing could have prepared me for the storm that was about to break. The life I had carefully constructed, filled with love and devotion, was about to face a betrayal that would shake me to my core. For many years, I had paused my own ambitions to prioritize my family. I left my career behind, not because I lacked passion or skill, but because I wanted to ensure that my children and my husband had a life free of unnecessary burdens. Our home had been my canvas. I painted it with love, attention, and care, filling it with warmth that could welcome anyone who entered. I thought that by dedicating myself fully to the people I loved, I was creating a sanctuary, a safe harbor against the unpredictabilities of life. Every morning, I prepared breakfast with care, helped Sophia review her job applications, and encouraged Lucas in his professional pursuits. Even small acts, arranging flowers in the living room, organizing old photographs, making sure family birthdays were celebrated with thought and affection, felt meaningful, a testament to the life we had built together. I had envisioned a future where the laughter of my children and the comfort of our home would be enough to carry us into our later years. I imagined quiet weekends spent reading in the sunroom, sharing stories of our past, and witnessing Sophia and Lucas flourish independently. My husband and I had made promises to each other, not just of love, but of loyalty, and I had taken them seriously. I had assumed that by dedicating myself to the family's well-being, I would never have to face a moment of betrayal. Yet, life has a way of surprising even the most careful planners. What I considered secure, my marriage, my family, my home, was about to be tested in ways I could never have anticipated. One morning, everything changed. I woke up to find divorce papers on the kitchen table, filed by my husband. My eyes widened in disbelief as I read the documents. He claimed he was entitled to $900 million, a sum that felt unreal, almost fantastical, yet terrifying in its implications. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the paper, unable to breathe properly. The world around me seemed to tilt, the familiar walls of our home suddenly oppressive rather than comforting. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The man I had trusted, loved, and sacrificed for had suddenly reduced our life together to a number on a page. I felt betrayed, as though every sacrifice, every quiet moment of patience and care had been meaningless in his eyes. My mind raced, trying to understand the logic behind such a decision. How could someone I had shared decades of life with suddenly prioritize money over family? The questions swirled endlessly. Was it always about money? Had I been blind all these years? The sense of shock was overwhelming, and for the first time in decades, I felt unmoored, unsure if I could even trust my own judgment. I sat down heavily, my hands trembling as I realized that this was not a misunderstanding. It was deliberate, a choice my husband had made, and now it would dictate the course of my life and the lives of my children. The shock was only the beginning. The realization that betrayal could come from someone so close left me numb and heartbroken. I could hardly bring myself to speak, and when I did, my voice just shook. Every memory of our years together, the trust I had placed in him, seemed suddenly fragile, almost hollow. Nights were the worst. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, unable to stop thinking about what had happened and what it meant for the future. I felt anger, sadness, disbelief, and fear all at once. How could someone I had trusted so completely behave in such a way? How could my home, once a place of comfort, feel like a trap? I also worried for my children. How would Sophia and Lucas react when they found out? I feared their hearts breaking, their trust in life being shaken. I realized that I couldn't allow this betrayal to destroy our family. Somehow, despite the flood of emotions and the pain of the situation, I had to find the courage to act. I could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on me, not just for myself, but for the future of my children, for the life we had all built together. I knew that panic or anger alone would not help. I needed a plan, a way to regain control and protect what truly mattered. After days of reflection and many sleepless nights, I understood that I had to act decisively. I couldn't let greed or manipulation determine the course of our lives. I began to formulate a plan, one that would safeguard our family's dignity and future. I refused to let fear paralyze me. Every step I considered, from legal consultations to financial decisions, had to be measured, calculated, and focused on the greater good. I reminded myself that while the betrayal was deep and painful, it was not the end. My children and I had each other, and that bond could not be broken by money or lies. I also had to confront the reality of what this action would mean. Selling shared assets, paying off debts, and leaving my husband penniless was not easy to imagine. Yet, as I weighed the consequences, I realized that maintaining our dignity and protecting our future outweighed the comfort of fear or the illusion of safety. I felt a strange mix of fear and determination, the fear of the unknown and the determination to ensure that our family survived, intact and unbroken. It was the first time in weeks that I felt even a glimmer of control. A sense that I could shape the story rather than merely react to it. After many sleepless nights and long hours of reflection, I finally made the difficult decision. I would sell all shared assets, pay off any outstanding debts, and leave my husband with nothing. It was not an act of vengeance, but a necessary step to protect our dignity and future. I knew that allowing him to take everything would have left us vulnerable, emotionally shattered, and dependent on someone who had already betrayed our trust. Every detail had to be carefully planned, from legal paperwork to financial arrangements, ensuring that the transition was as smooth as possible for Sophia and Lucas. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, documents spread before me, my hands shaking slightly. The weight of responsibility was heavy, but beneath it lay a strange sense of empowerment. For the first time since discovering the divorce papers, I felt that I was reclaiming control over our lives. I could feel the tension in my shoulders slowly easing as I realized that action, no matter how difficult, was the only path forward. I imagined the day when my children would see that we had emerged not broken, but stronger, and I allowed myself a small, quiet sense of hope. Executing the plan required courage, patience, and unwavering focus. Every phone call to lawyers, every meeting to finalize the sale of property, every step in settling accounts was a reminder of the stakes. But with each completed task, I felt lighter, as if a part of the heavy burden of betrayal was being lifted. It was not just a legal or financial victory, it was an emotional one. I was showing my children that even in the face of betrayal, one could act with intelligence, integrity, and strength. The aftermath of the decision was emotionally complex. Sophia and Lucas were deeply affected. Sophia burst into tears one evening, clutching my hand tightly. "Mom, why can't we just give him some of it?" she asked, her voice breaking. Lucas, on the other hand, was quieter but no less troubled. "Mom, will he ever forgive us?" he asked softly, worry etched into every line of his face. I held them both close, feeling the warmth of their fear and love intertwining. "We are protecting ourselves," I said gently. "Sometimes the right choice isn't the easiest, but it's the one that preserves who we are." The nights that followed were long and filled with emotional conversations. We shared memories, acknowledged the pain, and allowed ourselves to grieve together. I wanted them to understand that betrayal does not define our worth, and that facing it with courage could ultimately strengthen our bond. We cried, we held each other, and slowly, the fear began to ease. The children began to see that my decision, though harsh on the surface, was an act of protection, not punishment. It was a lesson in resilience, in making difficult choices for the greater good. At the same time, I had to navigate my own conflicting emotions. Anger, sorrow, and relief coexisted in an uneasy balance. But whenever I looked at Sophia and Lucas, I remembered why I had taken this path. It was not for revenge, nor for pride, but for the continuity of our family's integrity and the preservation of our future. That thought gave me strength, even as the nights remained long and quiet. We moved into a modest apartment in Portland, leaving behind the house filled with decades of memories. Every corner of that old home held echoes of laughter, arguments, celebrations, and quiet evenings together. Yet staying there would have been unbearable. The new apartment was small, simple, and unfamiliar, but it symbolized a fresh start. Each room was a reminder that life could continue even after betrayal, and that we could rebuild with dignity. Adjusting to the smaller space was not easy. The children missed the comfort and familiarity of our old home, and I too struggled with the emptiness that replaced so many familiar sights. Yet, in that stripped-down environment, I began to see the true essence of what mattered. The walls were bare, but our bond was intact. The furniture was minimal, but our love and mutual support were abundant. Every meal we shared, every conversation in the evening, and every small accomplishment in our day-to-day lives became an affirmation that we could survive, and even thrive, despite the upheaval. The simplicity of the new apartment also forced me to reevaluate my own life. I no longer had the distractions of material possessions or the pretense of comfort. What remained was raw and real. The children, their laughter, their fears, and our ability to face adversity together. Slowly, That stripped-down life began to feel rich in ways I had never imagined, because it was filled with connection, honesty, and resilience. I restarted work as a part-time library consultant, taking on small projects, tutoring sessions, and occasional speaking engagements. Some days were exhausting, balancing work with the household, emotional recovery, and supporting my children. But it was necessary. Every assignment, every student interaction reminded me that I still had purpose beyond the confines of my broken marriage. It gave me a sense of independence, and I could see Sophia and Lucas gaining confidence in themselves as they witnessed my determination. Initially, the work was physically and emotionally demanding. I often questioned whether I could keep up, whether the sacrifices were worth it, and whether I could ever feel truly at peace again. Yet, each completed task, each successful tutoring session, each positive feedback from students reaffirmed that I was capable. This return to professional life, albeit limited, helped me regain confidence, a sense of identity, and a connection to a world beyond our apartment walls. I realized that rebuilding life after betrayal requires both practical action and emotional resilience. It was not enough to protect our assets. I also had to protect our spirits. And slowly, through consistent effort and small victories, I could feel hope returning, a quiet yet powerful assurance that we were moving forward, not backward. Support came from unexpected places. Neighbors, old friends, and even strangers began to extend help in subtle, meaningful ways. A neighbor would bring over freshly baked bread. Another would offer childcare assistance when I had tutoring sessions. Former students reached out with words of encouragement, some even offering small, paid projects. Their gestures, small as they were, reminded me that even in moments of betrayal and loss, the world still contained kindness. This network of support became a lifeline. It was not about wealth or material gain, but about human connection. I realized that rebuilding a life after betrayal does not have to be a solitary journey. Reaching out and accepting help does not weaken, it strengthens. Slowly, the apartment felt less like a shelter from despair, and more like a home filled with resilience, community, and renewed hope. I also began to notice the subtle shifts in Sophia and Lucas. They started participating more actively in the household, helping each other and me, learning to take pride in their independence, and sharing quiet moments of laughter. We were emerging from the shadow of betrayal, not just intact, but united, resilient, and stronger in ways we had never imagined. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the small victories in our lives became sources of joy and affirmation. Cooking together, laughing over shared memories, and celebrating little achievements made the apartment feel more like a home. I helped Sophia prepare for job interviews, reviewing her presentations and encouraging her to believe in her abilities. Lucas, on the other hand, was progressing in his career, and I made sure to celebrate each of his milestones, from promotions to personal achievements. These moments reminded me that while material wealth could be taken away, the love, support, and shared experiences of a family could not be stolen. We began establishing new routines, simple yet meaningful. Saturday mornings were spent preparing breakfast together, evenings were for storytelling or movie nights, and weekends included small outings to local parks or libraries. Slowly, the apartment, though modest, became filled with laughter, warmth, and shared purring. I noticed how my children grew more confident with each passing day, learning resilience not just from my words, but from witnessing our collective ability to face adversity. These shared experiences, however small, were teaching us that life could be rebuilt from scratch with love, patience, and dedication. Even amidst the struggle, I felt a renewed sense of pride in myself. I realized that strength is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it is quiet, persistent and steady. My children and I were learning to navigate the aftermath of betrayal together, supporting each other emotionally, mentally, and practically. It was not an easy process. Tears and frustration were common. But each small victory, each moment of shared joy, brought us closer to healing. Over time, Sophia and Lucas transformed from anxious, uncertain adults into confident, independent individuals. Sophia secured a position in a reputed marketing firm, excelling at every task, while Lucas expanded his freelance business, gaining recognition and trust from his clients. Watching them flourish gave me immense satisfaction. It was proof that our struggles had not broken us, but had shaped us into stronger, more resilient people. As my children gained independence, I noticed subtle changes in our interactions. They no longer leaned on me for every decision, but came to discuss important choices, seeking advice while respecting boundaries. This shift reflected a growing maturity, one that came not only from personal ambition, but from witnessing our family survive and grow stronger after betrayal. Our bond, tested and tempered by adversity, had become unbreakable. The apartment that once felt small and confining now seemed like a haven. Each room carried stories of resilience, laughter, and determination. Even simple acts, like preparing dinner or helping with household chores, became shared moments of pride and connection. The sense of accomplishment was not derived from wealth or possessions, but from the strength, unity, and courage we had cultivated as a family. Meanwhile, my ex-husband had disappeared from our lives. I learned later, through mutual acquaintances, that he was struggling financially, having lost access to the resources he had expected to control. It was ironic. While he sought to gain wealth through manipulation and greed, we had rebuilt our lives without bitterness, relying instead on integrity, love, and determination. The contrast was striking. His absence reminded me that revenge is never necessary. Life has its own way of balancing outcomes. We no longer needed to dwell on anger or resentment. Each day, we focused on growth, gratitude, and the simple pleasures of daily life. Walking through Portland, enjoying the quiet mornings with my children, I realized that our sense of security had not come from money or possessions, but from the unshakable bond between us. Betrayal had tested our family, but it had not destroyed us. It had strengthened us in unexpected ways. This period also reinforced a valuable lesson. The world might betray, but trust and care within a family are priceless. We no longer feared instability or uncertainty because we knew that together we could handle any challenge. Our home, humble as it was, became a symbol of resilience, courage, and unconditional love. Through this journey, I understood that honesty, self-respect, and true family love are far more valuable than money. Material wealth can vanish, and people can disappoint, but values, dignity, and the strength of familial bonds remain eternal. I often shared this insight with Sophia and Lucas, reminding them that life would continue to test us, but the choices we make, grounded in integrity and love, define who we truly are. We began looking forward instead of dwelling on the past. Simple pleasures, sharing meals, weekend outings, celebrating personal successes, became the new markers of our success. Life, stripped of unnecessary luxury, became richer in emotional depth. I realized that the trials we faced had opened our eyes to what truly mattered: love, connection, and the courage to face difficulties together. This understanding shaped our daily lives. Each morning, I woke with a sense of purpose. Each evening, I reflected on our growth and resilience. The lessons of betrayal and recovery became part of our family narrative, a story of courage, dignity, and unwavering love that would guide us in all future endeavors. Today, I am proud of the journey my children and I have undertaken. We faced betrayal, heartbreak, and uncertainty, yet emerged stronger, more united, and filled with a sense of accomplishment that no material wealth could provide. We had rebuilt our lives from scratch, proving that courage, integrity, and love can triumph even in the darkest times. I look back at those days with a mixture of sorrow and gratitude. Sorrow for the pain we endured, and gratitude for the lessons it taught us. Sophia and Lucas are thriving, confident, and independent, carrying forward the values we cultivated together. Our modest apartment in Portland has become a home filled with laughter, resilience, and hope, a testament to the power of family and perseverance. If there is one thing I want others to take from our story, it is this: betrayal and hardship are part of life, but they do not define us. With courage, careful choices, and the support of loved ones, it is possible to rise above adversity, protect what truly matters, and create a life of dignity and fulfillment. Our story is a reminder that even when life seems unfair, strength, love, and unity light the path forward. And that is the greatest victory we could ever achieve.